We don't know how the universe came to be, and therefore God did it. Theologians have been using this argument for thousands of years, and here's Prager University carrying on this tradition of the God of the gaps.
In 1966, Time magazine ran a cover story asking, "Is God dead?" The cover reflected the fact that many people had accepted the cultural narrative that God is obsolete, that as science progresses, there's less need for a God to explain the universe.
Well, yes, because of science, we no longer believe in the gods of lightning, thunder, earthquakes, fire, tornadoes, volcanoes, disease, hurricanes, tsunamis, rainbows, and epilepsy. As Sam Harris said, what questions used to be best answered by science, but are now best answered by religion? Ancient people used to believe that lightning was an electric discharge, but today we know this is better explained by Zeus did it.
It turns out, though, that the rumors of God's death were premature.
Atheists aren't arguing that God is dead. We argue that God never existed. Something that never existed isn't dead because it was never alive. It never died because it was never born.
In fact, perhaps the best arguments for his existence come from, of all places, science itself.
Not according to history.
Here's the story. The same year Time featured its now famous headline, the astronomer Carl Sagan announced that there were two necessary criteria for a planet to support life: the right kind of star and a planet the right distance from that star. Given the roughly octillion planets in the universe, that's one followed by 24 zeros, there should have been about septillion planets, that's one followed by 21 zeros, capable of supporting life. With such spectacular odds, scientists were optimistic that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, known by its initials SETI, an ambitious project launched in the 1960s, was sure to turn up something soon. With a vast radio telescopic network, scientists listened for signals that resembled coded intelligence. But as the years passed, the silence from the universe was deafening. As of 2014, researchers have discovered precisely bupkis, nada, zilch, which is to say zero followed by an infinite number of zeros.
Some would argue we haven't found any signs of intelligent life on this planet either, but that aside, this argument that since we haven't detected anything, what we can detect is such a tiny fraction of the universe, and we're not just talking about life, we're talking about life evolved enough to create radio waves, something that we were only able to do extremely recently. And Neil deGrasse Tyson really had the best answer for this silly argument. Just because you don't see any fish in a cup of salt water doesn't mean there aren't any fish in the ocean.
What happened? As our knowledge of the universe increased, it became clear that there were, in fact, far more factors necessary for life, let alone intelligent life, than Sagan supposed. His two parameters grew to 10, then 20, and then 50, which meant that the number of potentially life-supporting planets decreased accordingly. The number dropped to a few thousand planets and kept on plummeting. Even SETI proponents acknowledged the problem. Peter Schenkel wrote in a 2006 piece for Skeptical Inquirer, a magazine that strongly affirms atheism, "In light of new findings and insights, we should quietly admit that the early estimates may no longer be tenable."
So since the original estimate of the percentage of planets that could support life was too high based on new information, the estimate was lowered. Imagine that. An idea was changed in light of new evidence. That's how science works. It progresses and improves over time. Religion can progress with science, with a liberal interpretation of Scripture. A dogmatic interpretation, a so-called literal interpretation, causes scientific ignorance and stagnation.
Today, there are more than 200 known parameters necessary for a planet to support life, every single one of which must be perfectly met or the whole thing falls apart. For example, without a massive gravity-rich planet like Jupiter nearby to draw away asteroids, Earth would be more like an interstellar dartboard than the verdant orb that it is.
So he says 200 parameters have to be perfectly met and uses Jupiter as an example. But does Jupiter perfectly protect the Earth from getting hit by asteroids? Well, let's ask the dinosaurs. The reason that humans exist is because of imperfection. This is what caused our species to evolve greater intelligence, bigger brains, changing environments, disasters. There have been 5 mass extinctions of Earth, and all these led to the need for higher intelligence to figure things out, to adapt, for us to adapt to the universe. The universe is not adapted for us. We had to adapt to living here on this planet.
Simply put, the odds against life in the universe are astonishing. Yet, here we are, not only existing, but talking about existing.
If there is only one planet in the entire universe, then yes, it would be astonishing. We are one planet in one solar system. There are 2 other bodies, Mars and the moon of Saturn, which also contain water, which is necessary for life. We are part of one galaxy that has 100 billion other stars, and there are over 100 billion galaxies in the universe.
What can account for it? Can every one of those many parameters have been perfectly met by accident?
They're not perfect. They don't have to be perfect, and the vast number of planets easily explains how this can come about by chance.
At what point is it fair to admit that it is science itself that suggests that we cannot be the result of random forces?
Science doesn't suggest anything. Science is about competing hypotheses. And as Richard Feynman put it, if an idea fails experiment, it's wrong. Science doesn't say we don't know, so God did it. Science says we don't know yet, and therefore we will continue to search for the answer.
Doesn't assuming that an intelligence created these perfect conditions in fact require far less faith than believing that a life-sustaining Earth just happened to beat the inconceivable odds?
No, a planet in a universe of trillions and trillions of planets happen to support life, where after billions of years of evolution, smart primates were able to develop language and then call their planet by a name.
But wait, there's more. The fine-tuning necessary for life to exist on a planet is nothing compared with the fine-tuning required for the universe to exist at all. For example, astrophysicists now know that the values of the 4 fundamental forces, gravity, the electromagnetic force, and the strong and weak nuclear forces, were determined less than 1/1,000,000th of a second after the Big Bang.
How do we know they were determined as if a decision was made rather than coming into existence, snapping into existence based on natural equalizing forces?
Alter any one of these 4 values ever so slightly, and the universe as we know it could not exist.
That's assuming that these forces can be altered independently of the others.
For instance, if the ratio between the strong nuclear force and the electromagnetic force had been off by the tiniest fraction of the tiniest inconceivable fraction, then no stars could have formed at all.
Once again, this assumes that these ratios can be altered. And how can we be so certain about probability numbers when our knowledge of physics and time only extends to the beginning of our observable universe?
Multiply that single parameter by all the other necessary conditions, and the odds against the universe existing are so heart-stoppingly astronomical that the notion that it all just happened defies common sense.
There are a lot of assumptions and speculations that go into these so-called probability numbers.
It would be like tossing a coin and having it come up heads 10 quintillion times in a row.
10 quintillion. Heads.
I don't think so. Fred Hoyle, the astronomer who coined the term Big Bang, said that his atheism was greatly shaken by these developments. One of the world's most renowned theoretical physicists, Paul Davies, has said that the appearance of design is overwhelming. Even the late Christopher Hitchens, one of atheism's most aggressive proponents, conceded that without question the fine-tuning argument was the most powerful argument of the other side.
Stating the fact that a vague God-of-the-gaps argument is the best that theologians can come up with is not exactly a compliment.
Oxford University professor of mathematics, Dr. John Lennox, has said, "The more we get to know about our universe, the more the hypothesis that there is a creator gains in credibility as the best explanation of why we are here."
So here we go with this "I know a guy" argument. Hey, I know a guy. It must be true.
The greatest miracle of all time is the universe. It is the miracle of all miracles, one that inescapably points to something or someone beyond itself.
Here's the thing. The God word does absolutely nothing to address any of this. If there was an all-powerful being that always existed, what would be the chances? How many coin tosses, how many heads in a row would you need to represent the probability? What would be the forces behind this being's intelligence and power? And if you alter one of those forces just 1/1000th of a billionth degree, then God loses his ability to exist. Every probability argument that theologians come up with the universe can be applied to God. It does absolutely nothing. Why not give the universe the awe and wonder it deserves and the honesty of we don't know? Why do particles pop in and out of existence in empty space, causing weight, causing potential energy? We don't know. Why do quantum entanglements work? We don't know. Why is the universe expanding at an accelerated rate? We don't know. We don't know that the beginning of this observable universe was the beginning of everything. We don't know that it came from nothing. And here's how you can really tell that this argument of fine-tuning is completely worthless, because it could be applied to anything. This kind of argument used to be used to validate Zeus. We don't know how the universe began, therefore Zeus did it. You can imply anything. A magic toaster, the flying spaghetti monster, Shiva, anything, because it's so vague and meaningless. It answers nothing. It is not sound reasoning. To try and say that we don't know or can't personally fathom how something could have happened means it must have been a God dreamt up by men thousands of years ago is silly. If people want to say they believe in God based on faith, then fine. But those who claim that science supports their supernatural religious beliefs are ignorant of what science truly is.
I'm Eric Metaxas for Prager University.
This is Jim Wall. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Cisco, do we have to leave all our good friends now?
Only until next time, Pancho. Adios, amigos.